In the ancient city of Axum, the moon hangs so close that its silver seems to drip onto the domes and battlements of the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. Somewhere behind those walls, shielded by iron gates and by a silence deeper than any vow of silence could impose, is a small rectangular building of roughly hewn stone, the Chapel of the Tablet, known locally as Bet Sion, the House of Zion. Inside, Ethiopian Orthodox Christians believe, rests the Ark of the Covenant, a gold-plated acacia chest, mercy seat of cherubim, throne of the invisible God. No photograph, no drone, no archaeologist probe has ever been permitted past its threshold. Only one man, the hereditary guardian monk, is allowed to see the Ark, and he is bound to the chapel for life, fed by acolytes who slide bowls of lentils beneath the gate, and buried when death finally comes, inside the same compound so that the secret dies with him. Tonight, long after pilgrims have returned to their hotels and the muezzin's last call has faded from the minarets, the chapel's cedar door remains bolted, but the camera we have come to carry is already rolling, and history itself seems to be holding its breath. To understand how a Hebrew cult object vanished from Solomon's temple and, according to an unbroken Ethiopian tradition, reappeared beside a 1,700-year-old African basilica, we must travel backward through parchment, memory, and dynastic pride. The story is codified in the Kebra Nagast, the 14th century epic whose Ge'ez title means the glory of kings. Composed under the patronage of Aksumite priests and Zagwe court scribes, the text insists that the Ark did not perish with Nebuchadnezzar's torch in 587 BCE, nor was it swallowed by Jeremiah's cave on Mount Nebo. Instead, it sailed south across the Red Sea in the company of Menelik I, the son conceived when the Queen of Sheba, Makeda to Ethiopians, visited Solomon in Jerusalem around 950 BCE. Solomon, dazzled by her intellect, is said to have tricked her into sharing his bed. Before dawn, he pressed into her palm his signet ring so that the child she might bear could one day claim paternity. Years later, the ring reappeared on the finger of a 22-year-old prince who arrived at Solomon's gate, speaking fluent Hebrew and requesting only a single blessing. Solomon offered him the throne. Menelik refused, insisting on returning to rule his mother's kingdom. Legend then tilts toward miracle. The firstborn sons of Israel's nobles, assigned to escort the prince, could not bear exile from Zion. They stole the Ark itself, replacing it with a replica so perfect that even Solomon's priests did not notice until smoke and a trembling floor revealed the deception. When Solomon pursued, a storm cloud lifted Menelik's retinue and carried them, Ark and all, across the desert to Eritrea's highlands in a single night. There, at Axum, the Ark was installed in a tent shrine, later enclosed by stone, and renamed Mary of Zion, because, as the Kebra Nagast proclaims, the glory of the Lord has departed from Israel and rested forever in Ethiopia. For nearly 3 millennia, every coronation of an Ethiopian emperor, from the Zagwe monarchs who carved the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela in the 12th century, to Haile Selassie, beneath the Italian bombs of 1936, has taken place beneath the shadow of that claim. The Solomonic Dynasty styled itself conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, and its rulers were anointed with oil said to be mixed from the same spices once used in Solomon's temple. The Ark, meanwhile, receded behind curtains of incense and taboo. Chronicles speak of its wooden poles being replaced when age threatened them, of its golden rings being recast after lightning struck the chapel in 1535, of its guardians. Always, monks of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, taking vows of celibacy and silence so complete that even coughing during prayer is forbidden. Yet the outside world has occasionally breached the curtain. In 1893, the French traveler Jules Borelli stood in the courtyard and recorded that he saw a monk whose eyes had the hollow stare of one who has gazed too long on the uncreated light. In 1941, During the East Africa Campaign, British officer Edward Uhlendorf, later professor of Ethiopian studies at the University of London, was escorted inside the compound by priests who feared looting. Uhlendorf later told colleagues that he had seen a medieval wooden box, gilded and fringed, clearly not the gilded acacia of Moses' day. His testimony, published in the Los Angeles Times in 1992, is still cited by skeptics. But Ethiopian clergy answer calmly. The ark was swathed in cloth centuries ago, and what Uhlendorf saw was only the outermost veil. What no skeptic has explained is the persistence of the guardians themselves. The current monk, referred to only as Abba, was appointed 26 years ago by his predecessor on the night that monk felt death enter his lungs. According to church protocol witnessed by Cambridge anthropologist Judith Binns in 2008, the dying guardian touched the younger man's eyelids, whispered a single verse from Psalm 68, "Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands unto God," and died before dawn. Since then, Abba has not stepped beyond the iron railings. Pilgrims leave cassette tapes of prayer requests outside the chapel. He listens through a slit in the wall and burns the tapes afterward so that no human voice lingers. His only daylight is filtered through a single latticed window facing the tablet, the replica ark kept in the main cathedral. When asked why the original must remain unseen, a deacon replied simply, "Because fire still lives in cedar and gold." The emotional core of the tradition is not secrecy for its own sake. It is identity. Ethiopian villagers who cannot read the Kebra Nagast still know its cadences by heart. On every 30th of November, the eve of the festival of Sion Mariam, tens of thousands walk barefoot through Axum streets, carrying wax print umbrellas embroidered with lions and crosses. They circle the chapel 7 times, chanting in Ge'ez, the ancient liturgical language, and believe that the ark itself glows faintly behind the walls, answering their praise. During the Derg regime's Red Terror of the 1970s, when Marxist soldiers burst into churches and shot priests, villagers hid fragments of the chapel's curtains in their hair and smuggled them to safety in Sudan. When asked why they risked their lives for cloth, one woman answered, "Because the ark is our mother's wedding dress." Modern science has tried, and failed, to dismiss such certainty. In 2009, a ground-penetrating radar team from Addis Ababa University scanned beneath the chapel floor. They detected a hollow cavity, precisely the dimensions given in Exodus 25, but the church refused to allow excavation. Carbon dating of the cedar beams in the ceiling yields a range between 450 BCE and 350 CE too broad to confirm or deny. Meanwhile, every Ethiopian church in the country, from Lake Tana's island monasteries to the rock churches of Tigray, contains a replica tablet said to derive its blessing from the mother ark in Axum. Remove the original, priests insist, and the spiritual circuit collapses. Which brings us back to the live footage that flickers on our monitor tonight. The camera, no larger than a prayer book, was slipped through a gap in the chapel's outer wall by a deacon whose grandfather once served as guardian. The lens is fixed on the cedar door behind which Abba prays. For 43 minutes the image is still, candle shadows moving like breath across stone, the faint clink of a sensor chain. Then at 2:17 local time, the door opens inward by no more than a hand's breadth. A sliver of lamplight spills across the threshold, and for 3 heartbeats something rectangular, gleaming, and taller than a man stands revealed. The feed freezes. When it resumes, the door is closed, and the courtyard is empty, except for incense smoke, curling upward like the memory of a vanished throne. Did we glimpse the ark? Or merely a reflection of the moon on gilt wood? The question cannot be settled tonight. But as dawn stains the sky above Axum, the same ochre as the tombs of the Zagwe kings, one certainty remains. For 3,000 years, across empires, famines, and revolutions, a single monk has kept vigil, so that the rest of us may wonder. If the Ark of the Covenant truly rests beneath these Ethiopian stones, then biblical archaeology itself must be rewritten. If it does not, then an entire civilization has built its soul around an absence so luminous that it outshines any gold. Either way, history is wider than our certainties, and the camera, still rolling, waits for the next breath of cedar-scented wind. If this story has unsettled your sense of where the past ends and the present begins, let us keep the conversation alive. Like the comment, share your own pilgrimage memory or question, and subscribe to History Off the Map, the channel that walks the knife edge between what is written and what is whispered.